you wrote another book.
I wrote another book, yes.
Hey,
So-
who are we talking to?
We're talking to T.G. Brown.
Yep.
I think you were episode, what was it? 8?
4, 3? It was early.
Yeah.
I told him he's an OG.
I'm an OG.
He's an OG.
Yeah.
That's his name now.
OG status.
You're a
OGTG.
pre-double digits, I think is what.
Yeah, so that's a singular.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, I wrote another book, and I'm glad we started this podcast. I mean, yeah, we had obstacles, but it wasn't my fault. Like the first time when I tried to destroy your guys' equipment with.
What happened
So
with
I
that?
wouldn't even
Yeah.
remember that, if we're being honest.
So if you guys are listening, this is what happened. Is that they brand new, just met these fine individuals here, and I show up. They're giving me drinks for free, just outstanding. And I get here, and my introduction is that I spill it all over this fine equipment. So, yeah. And I'm just sitting there like, oh, I'm such an idiot.
Right. We had this plugged in too, right?
Yes, I almost
So
destroyed all
you had
your
this
equipment.
wave of like
Yeah, it was
sticky
like-
stuff going straight
It was like an
towards
eruption
our,
of lava going to
It's
land.
like those brawny commercials, like, no.
And I'm just sitting there. My wife's over there in the corner, just like, oh God. And I'm just, anyway, so glad I didn't do anything like that this time. They gave me a cap this time. So, anyways, we're off and
Yeah, when you
running.
say drinks, it was water. It wasn't.
No, it was the energy drink.
It was an
Oh,
energy
that's what
drink.
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
you
what
got
it
me
was.
this like
Yeah.
special energy drink.
That's when he's like, hey, do you want an energy drink? Nope.
Yeah.
Hard pass. Hard passes.
Oh my goodness.
my
Anyways,
goodness.
where were we when we before I
Hello.
hello.
We were saying hello.
All right.
So man, I mean, it's only been a couple of months, but I mean, because you got that book kind of started. You're a couple. How far were you through your second book when we interviewed you last time?
I was actually, it was pretty much already drafted out. So I wrote them back to back pretty quick before I even published Tribal Honor. So I had it ready to go. There was just, editing, things like that I had to get through. I think I was in the developmental process when we talked. So working on the story and whatnot. So that, once I got that dialed in, the rest kind of came pretty quick.
So your third one's almost done then.
He's working on 4 and 5 now. What are we talking about?
We'll see. Yeah, but I have a plan. So I'm just kind of step by step plan that I'm working on.
Because you were talking about going outside of this genre of what you're talking about to like doing something completely different.
Yes, yeah, I'm working. I'm actually, my next book's gonna be a new project. I haven't announced it yet, so I'm gonna continue the Warren Lawson series. That's still happening, but this next one's gonna be a special project. I'll announce it later.
Will you announce it here? Like, will you come back and can that just be your thing? You announce all your
Yeah,
books?
I mean, I would love. Hey,
Yeah.
it's coming. No, anyway, yeah. So I'm excited. I'm working on that. I've been working on that for a while. It's very much a passion project. My next one. So yeah. But I want to say more, but
He's like, quit talking.
I gotta
about
hold it in.
Yeah.
I gotta hold it in. But anyways, yeah. So Jericho Burning, I'm pretty excited though. It's coming out here soon. So
20th.
Yeah.
Yep, 5 days. 5 days.
I already started reading. I found a character named Brian. I told Carrie like,
He's like, I'm in the book now. I was like, you sure
you
that,
might-
that name wasn't there before?
Yeah, you may
He's
read
like,
that character a
it
little
might
more.
have been, but like, I'm just gonna say it was me.
It's spelled B-R-I. It's obviously mine.
I know.
No
I was
B or
like, do you know
Y's.
anything about the character yet? Like,
Yeah.
do you want to claim it yet, or like?
Wrote it back in 2020, but definitely.
I predicted I was going to talk to a Brian. At
Yeah. No, yeah. There's a lot of aspects in it. It kind of seems like a very I don't know, straightforward story, manhunt story, but there's a lot of other elements involved that I kind of made it to, a little more complicated, but not so complicated that you couldn't follow along. So it's kind of like a natural disaster story mixed in with a manhunt because the wildfires are happening and they're dealing with that while this guy's on a rampage. So
it's an interesting mix because it's a natural disaster that actually happened, and you're mixing it with a storyline mixed into what's happening, and everybody in Oregon as they're asking where was I when the fire started?
yes,
And so everybody's gonna like read this book like, when this was happening, this is what was going on in the book.
Like they have a point of reference for it.
Yeah.
right. That was the hope. I think that was such a stressful time for all of us. So it's very memorable in my brain, and I think
it adds more stress on it, like murders.
Yeah.
What's a manhunt?
That's what my wife and I talked about. It's very like anxiety provoking at some points. I try to pick good times for like comedy to ebb and flow of the story, so it's not so
Like lighten it up a little
yes.
bit.
So I try to do that quite a bit, and I think that's pretty realistic because a lot of times in law enforcement we joke when we probably shouldn't things, but we do it to get it out of us or to process whatever. So the story definitely I have moments of humor that's both appropriate and not appropriate, but hey.
You gotta mix it in there a little bit.
Yeah, it makes it more authentic and real, I think. So
yeah, I mean law enforcement, I'm guessing, is like you gotta find humor where you can, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, we do that quite a bit. Usually behind closed doors, and we'll just be with a couple of the officers that experience whatever we experience. We'll joke about it later on after we've hopefully processed it. But yeah, so it's pretty
like
common.
A coping mechanism.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you got to put on a brave face, so it's pretty normal.
So where were you when the fires are going on?
Where was I? I was working. A lot of us were working overtime. I think any law enforcement officer or first responder was probably working overtime during that. I was more closer to the Otis fires, and so I was helping with evacuations there. One of our officers actually had a fire that almost wiped out his house, so he had to move his family. So it was a crazy time. We were evacuating people where the fire department normally would, because they didn't have enough people. They were fighting the fires. There was propane tanks blowing up and all kinds of stuff. It was wild. There's actually a funny story, which I'm gonna go into it if you don't mind. But so one story I always tell people is hilarious was that we were knocking on doors, and so we lined up like this, one car here, and we'd kind of leapfrog each other down each road in Otis, and we were evacuating people, knocking on doors. You got to go. The fire's nearby. And so we were doing that, and it gets really smoky to where I couldn't even see you. It was just like that. And so, and another reason why we probably shouldn't have been there, because we didn't have anything covered. Like, we're just coughing on smoke. I mean, I'm sure I probably have cancer from it. Anyway, so we start doing that
on the job.
Yeah.
Right.
So we start leapfrogging, and my partner's from Lincoln County, which is a different radio frequency than the one I usually use. And so I just kept going down the road, and I thought, because some of the driveways were longer than others, I thought, oh, he just had a long driveway to go down. I better just keep moving. Well, it turns out they already asked these people to move, and it was like the danger zone. And I just kept going. And so I go to this house, and I'm looking around, okay, they might be gone, but I'll just knock, And there's this ostrich, those in a cage. Yeah.
Like an actual ostrich?
Yes, huge. And it's just running in circles in this small circular cage. And I'm like, what in the hell? I was like, okay, that's weird. So I go and I'm knocking on the door, and this lady answers, and she's like, what? And it's 1 a.m, so she's tired. I'm like, we got to go. There's a fire. And she's like, what about my ostrich? And I'm like, I don't care about your ostrich. There's a propane tank blowing up 40 yards away. We need to go. Anyway, so she would not go. She was like, we got to get this ostrich out of here. That was priority. I'm like, well, do you have a trailer? And she's got a minivan. I'm like, that's not going to haul that. We got to move, lady. Anyway, so I finally tell her, I'm like, look, I'm gonna let your ostrich go. It'll just run. It will get out of danger. It'll know what to do. I finally convince her. She's like, okay, fine. So she's walking out. She's like, let me get my things. I'm like, we don't have time for that. And then as I said that, literally there was a huge explosion. It felt like it was 20 yards away. It was probably 100 to 200 yards away realistically. But in my head, I was like, that was super close, because all you could see is an orange flame through the smoke.
Wow.
And so anyway, so that finally woke her up. This is real. So she gets in her car, and I just opened up the gate for her ostrich, and I don't even know if that's the right animal. It was just a tall bird.
Emu type thing.
Did the thing run straight for the fire?
Oh, so I opened it up, and it just took off running, dude. And I was like, I don't know if that's gonna survive, but here I was like, at least I gave it a shot,
Yeah.
And it's just funny because every day since then, my wife was like, has there been any reports of an ostrich running down the highway or anything like that?
Did you get it back?
I still don't know what happened to that ostrich, but yeah, it took off running, man, and we don't know. It's one of life's many mysteries if that thing's alive, I guess. But
wow.
Yeah. Is that any part of the book? Do you reference it?
I wanted to, but I didn't know how I would get that.
Some sort of dinosaur tracks. Where is this coming from?
I told that story so many times that everyone always thinks that's hilarious that the lady wouldn't leave her ostrich. I was like, why do you have an ostrich in Otis, Oregon anyway? But
she's like, why don't you?
Yeah,
they
pretty
make
much.
giant eggs, right?
I was the weird one to tell her to leave. I'm like, lady, the world's burning. We gotta move. You know?
She's like, but my outfit.
Yeah, she's like, hello, do you see that majestic being? We are not leaving it. You know, I'm like, oh, okay. Anyways, oh yeah, and then the kicker to the story is that they had already, the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office had already went to those houses and knocked on the door. So not everyone answers, but they'll knock and they'll just document, hey, checked on this address. They had already actually knocked on that door.
That lady's one?
Yeah, but she didn't answer because she was sleeping.
Oh, I was like, so they've already told her?
Yes, because she didn't answer. They just knocked and they were like, I guess she's gone, and then had to move to the next house. I was going too far down the road. I didn't listen to directions, and I just happened to fall upon this house. And anyways, yeah, so long story short, she would have probably got caught in the fire because her house did burn down later. Anyways, totally lucked out.
Her ostrich.
Yeah. And then in the meantime, while I'm saving ostriches, my dispatcher's like, where are you? Like, because I have no radio reception where I'm at. And they're like, what is that? So everyone thought I was like gone. Anyways, finally I get out of there, and I'm looking around. I don't know where I'm at. Finally get out of this road out to the main highway, and like everybody's like, Brown, what were you doing, man? Like, where are we? I was like, I was just evacuating like we're supposed to.
I was saving ostriches.
He was like, we were supposed to stop at the 10,000 block or whatever block we're on. He's like, we were supposed to stop at that. Do you not remember the briefing? I was like, yeah, I totally knew that. I was just double checking, you know.
Wow.
What were you doing?
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, it was an interesting story. Yeah, one that definitely sticks in my mind.
So in the book, this is literally at the beginning of, hey, it's kind of smoky out.
Yeah,
that's kind of where it starts at.
Yeah,
and so as you're going through the book, I'm guessing it's going to get worse.
Yeah. It definitely, the images that I remember in my mind, I definitely kind of picked up on and slowly implemented that in the book to kind of, I don't know what's the right word for it, but kind of show the progression of the fires around the state, because it did start like that. I remember just the smoke. I was like, man, it's like kind of hard to breathe out here, you know. And then the sky started changing colors and all that, you know. So, and then people were panicking, and just like the highway was packed with people fleeing from whatever fire, because there's fires on both sides, you know, of where I was at. And so just things like that, where like the progression of like panic setting in, the wildfires getting out, you know, because it was dry, it was summertime.
It didn't seem real.
Right.
Like we were up at Detroit, and they were going to be putting out a fire up there.
Yeah.
We were out on the lake watching. We were waiting for, was it the helicopter or the plane or something to come, like,
let's go out on the lake so we can see get a good
we
look
took
at
our
it.
kids out there, and we're like, all right, we're just waiting. And then they canceled it, and we were supposed to stay another night. We came back because our daughter's allergies were bugging her. The smoke was bugging her so bad. We're like, all right, we were supposed to stay another night. And then we wound up coming down like 3:00 that morning. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I just happened to look at my phone, and I'm like my brain couldn't register what was happening.
Yeah.
And so I'm like waking Brian up. I'm like, I think there's like fires all around us right now. And he's like, what? And then we start looking, and sure enough.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was a crazy time. I think I was actually on a vacation. My wife and my stepkid and I, we were out of the Alsea River. And there was a fire warning that came before the fires even started. And my stepson was pretty young back then. I think he was like 8 or 9. Anyway, so my wife has like a sixth sense. Like, I swear she's a witch. I swear she knows the future sometimes, like in a good way, in the best way possible.
The best way ever.
Like Sandy Bullock.
Yeah.
Anyways, we were there, and we were going to plan out, you know, a day to hang out at the river, a couple of days, you know, and she saw the fire warning that hit our phones, and she was like, we need to leave. Just immediately was like, we need to leave. And of course, Canton was like, no, I don't. We just got here, Mom, you know. And I didn't really know, but there was a look in her eye. Anyways, long story short, we just got up and left, and there was like a tree that came down on one side of our house and a fire that started on the other side. We would have been stuck. We'd have been stuck in it. Anyways, and we left, and as we were leaving, like there was a wind warning too, because we were close to the coast, and it was like sparking wires on the telephone wires and stuff. What's the box that? There's like a box.
Transformer?
Yeah, transformers were blowing and stuff like that as we were driving. Because I was driving thinking, oh, we're probably fine, but better be safe and sorry. We'll go home, you know.
Like, this will give us peace of mind.
Yeah, so we're just going back to our house, and as we're driving, Canton's in the front seat, and he goes, there's a transformer just blew back there. And I'm like, no, it's not, buddy. It's not. I thought he was just freaking out,
fine.
You know, because he was a young kid, you know. And, you know, kids get scared easily. And I'm like, no, buddy, you're fine. And it turns out Ashley saw it, too. And she was like, she thought I was just doing the responsible parenting thing. Like, no, I was like, no, you're not. Anyways, and then like 6 fire trucks go flying by us. I kind of looked over.
Didn't see that either.
I looked over at Ken, and I was like, I guess he was right about that. Yeah, crazy times.
It's interesting. We talked about this earlier, how like disasters either bring out the best in people or the worst in people.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, then you experienced some of that too with
Yes.
when the fire's happening.
Yes, there's a lot of looting. How people were leaving their houses unprotected, essentially, and so some criminals would take that as a opportunity to go and steal stuff. And so we had a lot of stories like that where people were stealing from houses, and we'd catch them in the act, and they'd run from us and things like that.
Because crime didn't stop just because there was
No.
fires everywhere, and
No.
so you guys have like this double situation going on where you're trying to like help everybody, but then you're trying to like still do your job.
Yeah. The casino out where I'm at, it was packed to the hotel people were housing there. That they were housing everyone from the Otis fire. So yeah, there was a lot of different personalities packed in this small town. So there was a lot happening. It was definitely a pretty busy time, and so that's kind of what stuck out in my mind when I wrote this book. And also you talk good and bad. Yes, people took it as opportunity to do bad things, but I saw a lot of good people
Really
step
good,
up
yeah.
and help. When times really. So I think my book definitely touches on that. There's people that are brave that step up and own it and fight the evil. Where the other evil is giving into it, and so that's definitely a theme in the book, is that there's good and bad, and sometimes those things reveal your character, and it's, even though it's tragic, it's also could be seen as a good thing too in the end. So
Yeah. Well, it's kind of cool that you can pull from, experience you've had
yeah,
with the fires and then, add other elements to it to kind of just make it even more crazy
yeah,
with that. And I think a lot of people from Oregon will appreciate that. I don't think there's been any books written about the fires specifically.
yeah. Not that I am
Not that I
aware
know
of.
of,
That was
yeah.
part of the allure to it, I guess.
Yeah.
Was that I was like, I like to be unique, but not recreate the wheel, sort of thing,
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I don't remember any books really that I've read, and I've read a lot of books that were about that or centered around that. So
Yeah.
that was part of my motivation for that. And then I really loved the movie The Fugitive. That was a movie that really stuck out in my head as a kid. So I kind of mixed those two ideas into this story, and then mixed in my own personal experience to, make it more real and things like that. So
Because you get to look at it from all sides. You
Yeah.
get to look at it from like the perspective of like the law enforcement side, where you're trying to do your job and
Yeah.
keep everybody safe, and then like the fugitive side as well.
Yep.
Do you ever have any issues with the book writing process, like running this by like your supervisors, like, hey, can I talk about this, but like rename something?
No, I keep it pretty fictional.
Yeah.
I think the first book was definitely more difficult because that case was pretty close. It was really happened. I mean, there was a case pretty similar to that. I did change things and run it by my supervisors on that because, want to protect the real story, is because that's not my story to tell, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that one was a little harder. This one definitely was more of, there was parts of real things that I experienced, parts of what other cases that I remember hearing about while I was on duty, or talking to a friend of mine that's also an officer, and hearing what they went through and things like that. So it was a little more research based than the first one, where the first one felt like it was just straight from the heart. So yeah.
So with that, with it being your second book, you've built some momentum on the first book. How is it going with the second book, as far as where you at now in the process, as opposed to where you at with your first book?
Yeah.
Are you feeling that?
Yeah, I feel like I've progressed quite a bit. I think my writing's gotten a lot better. And as far as, I mean, it's not out yet, so I don't know how sales are going to go.
Yeah.
There's always like I was telling you before the show, I'm a little nervous that it won't do as good as the first. There's always that slight insecurity that, oh, maybe it's not going to be as well received. People will kind of always say, oh, the first one's the best, second one sucks. That's kind of that's why I'm hoping to avoid, so I think, but when I read the story again, because I've read it quite a bit now, is that I think that I've progressed quite a bit as far as, the story, the cleanliness of the storytelling is more, transparent, where I think the first one started off kind of very picking up a slow pace and introducing the world and the characters and their backstories, and then it hit, midway through, it really kind of picked up. I think this one has a more trajectory that's kind of more evenly balanced. It slowly rises as it goes. The tensions get higher, the stakes get higher, the consequences are there, so that's where I'm very proud of what this story became. It it's very unique. It's set during a 24-hour period. So writing a whole book in a 24-hour period is definitely different. A 2-hour movie, you can do that pretty easy, but a book, 300 something pages set in a 24-hour period, you really have to focus and get that organized. And I organized my story a lot better. I outlined this one, and it definitely showed, I think, as I read it, it came together a lot quicker because of that.
Yeah, I did notice a big difference in the beginning of your last story. It was a lot of character building and building up to what the story shifted about halfway through.
Yeah.
It was a big shift. All of a sudden, it took a whole different turn.
Yeah.
This one's very different. It's like action kind of right from the beginning.
Yes.
So you definitely feel the shift with it. It's like we've built the characters in the last book. Now here we are, kind of being able to do something different with it.
Yeah, definitely hit the ground running. I think of it like Batman Begins, the Christopher Nolan trilogy. It's different stories, completely different stories. But how he structured that trilogy was very much like the first one. You get to know where Batman came from and all that, and that world, and then it kind of ends with a bang, And then the second one with the Joker picked up and hits the ground running. It's just a fast pace.
Yeah.
But he also built on the characters while being fast paced. That was my goal with this second one, where it was going to be kind of a similar structure as that story. So
that's cool. So you mentioned that you're going to be switching gears to maybe a different type of book later on. How hard is that going to be for you? Because this is a genre that you are familiar with. I'm sure the research is probably a lot easier for you to kind of research. How you kind of know some of it already.
More relatable.
Yeah. So if you're talking about going into a whole different type of book, how hard is that going to be to research and kind of figure out how to get outside of how you normally think about things and put yourself into a different type of character that doesn't think like law enforcement?
Yeah. It was hard. It was definitely difficult because I didn't live it. I think there's a certain aspect to writing, I felt like I think I told you guys last time, I felt like I'm cheating with the research with the police novels, because there's one thing with research, there's a totally another thing if you've actually experienced it and lived it, and I think bringing that out is very authentic, and now trying to bring out that same feeling in a completely different genre, it's definitely hard, but I still do draw on that experience and that emotion. Things, just simple things of like, what was PTSD like for characters, it's things like that where I just try to draw on that. Like I try to put myself in that timeline or that space and try to think, okay, what would I think? What would this person think? Because I usually base my characters on people that I know. Depending on whatever genre it is, it's usually I have something in mind, a personality in mind.
Point.
Right.
Yeah.
So then when I'm putting them in these situations, I think, okay, what would that be? What would be the apt response there?
Yeah.
Because you don't want all your characters responding like you would, right? Because that's not realistic. Everyone's gonna have different opinions on things. So, yeah, no, it's very difficult, but I've really enjoyed it. It's a nuanced way of doing a story for me, and researching and checking facts and doing all that stuff's actually been kind of fun. I've learned a bunch, and I'm excited to release it because I think it's gonna have that same flair of my other books, but it'll be a different genre, and I'm pretty proud of it. So,
because I see that you write every day.
Yep.
Are you writing on this specific book, or is it like you're starting new ideas as far as your writing?
Yeah, it changes. It depends. So right now I'm just working on my new project, and then I'm editing my new project that I'm going to hopefully release next year. And then I am also writing another Warren Lawson book at the same time. So I already have my new project finished, and I've gone through it a couple times, but I just keep going through it, ironing it out, making
Your
sure.
next book is already finished?
Yeah. Yeah, I already have a draft. I just need to get it to the editors and set all that time. I'm actually getting a new narrator for this one just because it's a different genre altogether. Yeah. I'm keeping him for the Warren Lawson books because he is like the voice of him now. I think that he just does such a good job. But this one's such a different genre that I was like, I think I might need to get a new one. So I got to schedule that and do all that, which is kind of like starting all over again. That's pretty much it. Yeah, it'll be fun. So,
but this whole process is probably getting easier for you as you go through each book you've gotten through. Now that you know how to write the books, you know who to send it to, how to get it published, how to get it narrating. This is probably like it's probably you're able to build on this a lot quicker now.
Yes, it's definitely smoother with each round. You know, every time it's just like anything you practice, the better you get. You know, at first it's hectic. You know, I was telling her with the second book, I still find typos. You know, I found it.
Yeah.
You know, like I've gone through it 20 times, and literally a couple days ago there was a typo found, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "How did I miss this?" You know, but. Yeah, I just remind myself that every book is probably in history has had a typo because there's so it's just so it just happens, you know. And I try to reduce it because I think that definitely takes away from the story, but also not being kind to myself and not being so hard. Like, you stupid idiot, how did you miss it? You know,
I literally thought I found a typo on your book the other day when I was reading it. I was like, oh. The dyslexic guy found a typo.
The dyslexic.
Yeah,
dude, it's a struggle being dyslexic and ADHD. I was like, I always tell my wife and my editors, I'm like, I'm sorry for being ADHD and dyslexic because I'm putting you guys to work.
It was literally, I think the page stopped and then it started up. It's like this section. I just read this section, and it was just. The page wasn't formatted on the tablet right, and so I continued it on to another section.
Brian's like, aha!
And you're like, yeah, dang it.
Yeah, no, those the pre-copies you'll probably find a couple, you know, grammar correct, like some typos like that, just because they're think of it as like a movie that's not finished yet. Like they kind of get, you know,
it's in beta.
Yeah, so it's kind of like still, it's not the finalized, but it's close, you know. So you might find a few, but feel free to let me know because it's helpful to me. I always tell people, I'm like,
you're gonna start getting stuff from Brian. He's like, no,
I am not offended.
That's how you spell there. You spelled the other there.
There, and there.
No, I'm not offended.
He's gonna block you on social media. Like, stop sending me stuff.
No, like I said, it's very helpful that, you know, if someone finds a typo, because I don't catch all of them. You know, the other day I was talking to a buddy and he was like, yeah, I think you named this rifle a different name. And I'm like, what are you talking about? No, I didn't. You know, and I get on there and I'm like, yeah, I did. Why did I do that? Like, I don't remember, you know,
You're like, I know the difference.
So, so then I had to get on there and that was like a week or two ago. And he read the book in a day and he was kind of like, oh yeah, no, you called this rifle that he's a big gun guy, and he's like, yeah, you did. I was like, no, I didn't. I was like, why? Anyways, but
most people wouldn't notice that either.
Oh yeah, but it's helpful because I didn't notice it, and now it's not, and now it's fixed when the final product comes out. And being an independent author like I am, that's super helpful. I don't have a team of people doing that for me, you know. So it's like essentially you find people are my team, you know, and you guys are just, it's super awesome to have that support from everyone.
Usually it's me posting something, and then Carrie's like, 5 minutes later, she'll call me up and say, yeah, you spelled that wrong. You got to take the whole thing down.
Can I tell him about today? Can I tell him about it? He posts something. The guy's name is Jacob. He's a lovely guy. And he posts it, and I see something come through on my phone, like, my name is Jacob. And I'm like, why is he introducing himself? And all of a sudden, I'm like, dang it, Brian just posted something. And so I call him, and he answers the phone going, I fixed it. And I was like, what was it? And he goes, I put Justin. And I was like, oh, okay. And so then I go in, and I see my feed, and I call him back. I said, who's Jacoby? And he's like, no, I fixed it. And I was like, no, I'm looking at it. I was like, you
refresh
went from Jacob to Justin to Jacoby. And he's like, just refresh it. And I refreshed it. And I was like, okay, it's good. And I was like, so now we have a Justin Jacoby.
Justin Jacoby.
That's funny.
I like Jacoby. It's very
there you go.
European sounding.
Just adding some flair to it.
Yeah, whatever.
Or Tomorrow is my favorite.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow.
Yeah.
I do that a lot.
Right?
You know, it's AI and it's the spell check's fault.
He's blaming AI for everything.
Yeah, you know,
it's a solid. I mean,
supposed to
Terminator 2, right? AI, terrible.
There you go.
Yeah.
We saw it coming.
Yeah.
They're not going to take over. They're just going to let us like not spell check anything anymore.
Yeah. And drive us crazy.
Yeah.
That's funny. I totally dream about that. Sorry, where are we going?
Oh yeah, that's all right. All right. Let's get him back on track with that camera too. Like I said,
pointed all the cameras.
Yeah, we got 6 cameras now set up. So I
feel like that Spider-Man meme. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Like that's what I feel like.
There's like a bunch of Spider-Mans and they're all pointing at each other.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like who's the real one?
Okay.
Yeah. It's a good meme.
It's hilarious.
I should see it.
It's hilarious. You gotta see it. Yeah, you gotta see it for yourself.
I'll look it up whenever.
You too. No, I'm just kidding.
So, where were we?
I don't know. I totally derailed us.
We asked about researching a new book.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Nope.
So when you're writing a book and you read through what you wrote, who is the first person that reads it after you? Is it Ashley? Or is it...
No, it's not. Yeah, Ashley's...
You're like, I don't put her through that. I get
No, she reads it when it's all done. I'm trying to think.
Oh, she reads like the final after?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I want to say just my editor.
I'm like, walk me through that process. I'm curious.
I don't really know. I think it was my editor. I think I read it over. I do about 4 or 5 drafts usually, and then I send it to an editor, and they read through it, and then we go through all that process. It's got to be an editor. I've never really thought about that, to be honest. But yeah, I'm sure it's my editor.
You're gonna be thinking about it all the rest of it.
I think my first book, I actually sent it to my lieutenant, and he read it He was one of the first ones to read it.
Oh, cool.
I would send it to my mom, like my mom.
Yeah,
I would call her up and be like, "I need you to stop what you're doing."
No, she'll be like, "This is great, honey. This looks
she's
fabulous. You don't need
though.
to change anything."
No, she wouldn't. She gives me good feedback.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought moms were kind of like, I mean, I don't want to like tell you the truth, but
No, she'll say it in a nice way though. So
yeah. No, I think what I learned with that first one when I sent it to my LT and stuff first was that it wasn't completely finished yet until it went through the editing process. So that's why I think this time I just went to the editor first before sending it, because the Tribal Honor changed quite a bit. Actually, I think I took out quite a bit of story that I had in there because I needed the story to flow a little faster. So my LT actually read almost, it's not completely different, but there was a completely different backstory. The Native American brothers in the Tribal Honor, they had a whole backstory of them going to prison and stuff. It was a whole like 20-page arc I had of the Anakin and Motto, so you know why they went to prison, how like it was interesting. It could have been a story on its own, but then my editors were kind of like, that's takes away from the main character.
They're like,
and all that.
Doing?
They're like it's interesting, but the main thing is it's
like a Quentin Tarantino movie where they're gonna give the backstory of all their characters.
Yeah.
Like, where are we at? And
then I tell stories though.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
I got two. You're
like Quentin Tarantino telling us how your day went.
I ran into this woman named Beth. Now Beth has 3 kids, and their kids are blah 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 blah, and they're in this grade and this grade, and Brian's like, what are we doing?
Here's a family tree. Here's how we're related. And here...
Yeah.
You're welcome.
I got on 23andMe. No.
Yeah.
But like 20 years later, now I'll start telling something, and Brian's like, wait a minute. Is this person connected here? So
yeah.
He's connecting the dots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yep. So.
And then she asked me how my day is going. Like, no, I'll be like, fine.
Just kidding.
That's my backstory. That's it. It's just fine.
You're a mystery.
Yeah.
That drives me nuts. No.
Yep. So editors are the first ones that see the book. For sure. Yeah.
So probably, I mean, how much did that chunk take off your book? I mean, did you totally go down that route, or did you like say, I want to talk about this, and like I wouldn't go that far
with the second one?
No, with the backstory with the 2 characters.
Yeah, no, we took it out. Basically, we replaced the backstory with there's a scene with Dakota and Warren where they talk about their backstory and they're looking up their history on police records and stuff. And so we filled in the character backstory with like 6 pages instead of 30, and it was like very much a dialogue between the 2 main characters. That way you were more connected with the main character, and you were learning about the 2 brothers, because that was important to me leading to the showdown towards the end. So that was the idea the editor actually gave me. She was like, hey, this could be a good way. You could insert some humor here and there with the characters as they read this, things like that. So you're building, 4 characters instead of just 2, and so I was like, that's a great idea. And so then I rewrote something, and then we replaced it with that, see how it flowed with the story. And it was great advice, because I think it definitely helped the book, because I think I would have lost people with my Tarantino mind going all over the place. There's definitely helpful things that I listened to. The second book, I feel like I didn't have any of that. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 characters that were kind of like, well, maybe we flesh that out just a little more, just so we know why they're making certain decisions, and things like that. And I was like, okay. And so just add it.
Are both books about the same size as far as, chapter and page count, or is it like one bigger than the other?
I think the first one's like a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I think the second one's pretty decent length, but I think the first one's just, a couple hundred, like maybe like 70 pages longer or something like that. So the second one's a little more lean, I guess, as far as storytelling. So
when your book comes out, it's going to be, obviously you're releasing it on Amazon.
Yep,
Amazon. Where can people find it?
Yeah, Amazon's the biggest one. Barnes and Noble, and any bookstore. You can go into a bookstore and say, hey, can you can I get an order of T.G. Brown's Jericho Burning here, and they'll ring you up at any bookstore. So
now, what about audiobooks? When's that going to be available?
audiobooks should be coming out on the 20th as well.
Oh, both of them
wow.
at the same time.
Well, there was a delay because my narrator literally got like super sick and he couldn't talk. Like
They got laryngitis.
yeah.
Oh.
So because he emailed me and he was kind of like, hey, I could record, but it might not sound as good.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Like
I mean,
all of a sudden
yeah.
through the book, you're like, what's happening?
I've had like I read audiobooks where all of a sudden like chapter 2. I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
who changed there? And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden, like 2 seconds later, it sounds normal. It's like the guy literally read this section for like 2 minutes, and then all of a sudden the next day he's better.
Yeah.
Because his voice changed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I told him,
Just wait.
Just wait.
Yeah.
I'm not big on pushing deadlines. That's a good thing about being an independent author is that you can create your own deadline. Like if I gotta wait another week to give a good product, then I'm gonna do that because you only get to do it once.
Yeah.
You push it out too fast, and then you have all these mess ups on it, and people don't like it. It's out there forever now.
Like,
So
this is garbage.
to me, I'm like, nope. If people want it, that's great. I love that, but I'm not gonna rush it because of people wanting it right now. It really means a lot to me. It's kind of my love letter to whatever genre I'm writing. So I want to make sure it's as good as it can be.
So how many paper copies did you order for this one, or do you even know? Like,
No, I haven't ordered any yet because Amazon does this weird thing. They don't let you get the paperback copy until the day of the release, unless you're like a big time, author. So I just have the author copy, which is it basically comes with a little line that says it's not for resale, and you just get an idea what it looks like, the formatting, and you go through that to make sure it's everything that you want it to be. I usually give those author copies to like my wife and my mom and dad so they can read it before it comes out.
Yeah.
And then I just order one off of Ingram Spark, so it's called that they send authors copies of their book for cheap. You just have to pay for the shipping.
Oh.
And then so that's kind of what I do. I usually order some on opening day, and then I have a book signing on the Sunday. So on August 25th, I'll be having a book signing over in Dallas.
Where's
1667 Southeast Holman Street in Dallas. It'll be from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. on August 25th. And it's a book signing, but kind of like a celebration too. Sometimes people don't have their books yet, depending on when they ordered it. But I always say, come on over and hang out and just have fun. And you could bring Triangle Honor if you haven't got that signed too, and just kind of have fun. I just want to have celebrate it. I didn't really get a chance to take in the first one when it got published because I was actually in trial for a couple of days, and so I was like having this book published, and I didn't really get a chance.
You're like,
to go.
I hope things go well.
Right. I didn't really get to celebrate it or see what's happening or if anybody bought it or, this time I'm going to try to actually enjoy it. And
Are you taking
drink
time
it.
off to like be able to?
No,
good.
my wife and I are going to the Halsey River, actually. Hopefully no fires. So we're going there and we're going to kind of relax for a couple of days, and I'm looking forward to it. And then I think just promoting it during that week is always important when it first comes out. Like, hey, it's out. Getting the word out to people. So
I've been seeing your reviews on Tribal Honor.
Yeah.
They've been going up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
what do you got now?
106 last
Good
time.
job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
last time I checked. Yeah, it's.
I was
awesome.
watching it creep towards like that 100 mark, and all of a sudden it was like, you're there.
Oh, I
So-
know. I was just like hoping. I wanted to get 100. That was my goal.
Yeah.
And that's again super rare. I met an author named Deborah Ledford, and she's super, awesome award-winning author. She writes in a similar genre about a Native American female officer, and she works over in a reservation in Arizona. Anyway, she actually came to our police department for a research trip, and that's how I met her. And she was just telling me, she's like, you're getting a lot of reviews. Like, that's super rare for an independent author to get that many reviews right off the bat. And I was like, yeah, I'm just super lucky with this community. How many? So I just every day I'm so grateful for it because I know I couldn't get here without everyone that supported me, and I think it's kind of my mission now in life to bring them with me, no matter what, however successful this book comes. I want to bring them with me everywhere I go, so it's kind of like all of us get to succeed together, and that's my hope anyway.
Yeah, I mean, reviews are so important now. It's like, I mean, you could have 100,000 copies sold, but if you have 0 reviews, like, do I really want to buy that one too?
Yeah.
But,
No, people that don't know you won't buy your book. It's pretty simple. I mean, I know I won't buy a book if I look at it and there's like 2 reviews, and I'm like, okay, well, nobody's read this book. I mean, it could be a great book. I will never know, but majority of the time I'll look at it and I'll see oh, that's got a fair amount of reviews and it's got good, I'll give it a shot if I haven't heard of the author. So it's super important. And I always tell people it's everything. Lily puts food on the table for me as a writer because that gets sales down the road and gets the chatter about the book, and I always have this lofty goal that's going to become a movie one day, So like if I needed to get as many eyes on it as possible for somebody, hopefully in Hollywood to see it, because I'm such a.
You're like, so if anybody's watching,
Netflix or
Netflix, Kevin Costner, direct it. But so
I love it.
Yeah.
So
what's the next thing you got to do now with this book? I mean, you just got to wait.
I'm just waiting now.
Right.
Yep, I'm counting down the days and hours. 5 days, 30 hours. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know how many hours, but yeah, no, it's it's a waiting game now. It's all done. Yeah, it's just kind of.
It's available for pre-order.
Yeah, the Kindle's available for pre-order, but the paperback and audiobook aren't available quite yet. They'll be about as midnight on August 20th. You can order the paperback.
Okay.
And then as far as the audiobook, I don't really have a ton of control on when that comes out. I give it to the narrator, and he does this thing, and then we go through the ACX audiobook website, and then they put it out to publish. As far as like pricing and all that, I have no say in that. Like they put it out and they basically deem it on how good it's doing. That's how they price your audiobook. Yeah. So
you don't have any control over that?
No, the audiobook's very much kind of like, here's my book.
Yeah.
And luckily, Andrew tells a 10. Like he's super helpful and supportive. Like, hey, this is what we're doing. What do you think? He doesn't have to involve me that much, but he does it just because he's
usually. I mean, on Audible, it's like it's worth a credit.
Yeah.
And then there's other ones that are like free.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they actually did a sale before coming up to Jericho Burning for the audiobook for Tribal Honor. So people could kind of go back and read the first one if they haven't yet, So yeah, it's an interesting process, but
so you'll be able to get the box set pretty soon then, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
How many books do you want to have in this whole?
Oh, I don't know yet. I say in my head I want to do like 10, but then I just don't know. It depends what I go with the characters. And I think that if I set a number in my head, it takes away from the story because I'm like, nope, I said I'm going to do this. I need to do it. I get it in my head that
you just want to see where it takes you.
Right. Yeah. Because if they're, the character of Warren Lawson, he might meet his end earlier than I thought. It depends on the character, or maybe he lives on to be an old man and
you're going to kill him off.
You don't know. I don't know.
I don't know what's in store for him.
I think, that's the thing is like, I don't know. I think that, there is a romantic idea in my head of him one day sacrificing himself for the younger generation or something when he gets older. That's been fascinated to me because I think that's kind of like speaks to higher volumes, like as a parent, like you're you would do that for your kid type thing. Anyway, so I always had that idea, but then I have the idea of him riding off in the sunset and getting to be, do the things he wanted to do. It just depends. Like I said, I put the characters in situations, and I very much believe that when they're in those situations, there needs to be real consequences because that's how life works. So, it's hard sometimes. Like I want them all to live and be, flourishing. But
you're telling the story like,
yeah, but you got to do it because otherwise, as a reader, you're building a relationship with your readers. They will not trust you. They'll go, oh, these characters are bulletproof. They'll never die. But if you kill off a character here and there, or they'll be like, oh,
is it like a dice roll, or is it like,
no,
I don't like that guy anymore.
I think
he pissed me off.
I kind of go where the story, it's just where the story's at, man. Sometimes I'll be there and I just think, nope, this character wouldn't live, and or that, how does that affect the story and where I'm doing for the story? I'm like, okay, well, that fits with what I'm going for here. And so yeah, we'll see. I have other new characters I want to bring into it, and things like that. I have younger characters that will come up, and I'm hoping that when Warren's meeting the new characters and how he deals with that, because the events of the first couple books, like I said, all kinds of plans for that. So I don't know, to say the truth. It could be 4 books, it could be 10, it could be.
That's
20.
interesting to hear, because in my mind, I think in my mind, I have an idea of what the process is going to look like. And the process is, okay, I have this huge story to tell and I'm going to break it down in X amount of books. I don't think of it in terms of, I'm going to see where the story takes me as the whole thing evolves. And, could be 2, could be 10.
I when I first started, I was like that. I really was like, nope, 10 book arc. It's going to be, awesome. And then the more I'm writing it, I'm actually working on book 4 a rough draft for book 4, and I don't know, Louis L'Amour, are you guys familiar with Louis L'Amour? He has a book called Last of the Breed, and then there's another game called Most Dangerous Game by Richard O'Connell, and it's very much a survival thriller. And I wanted to put Warren in a scenario like that where he had to survive. And so, as far as my genre goes, I don't want to be formulaic. I think, I think I'm nothing against writers that are very formulaic. Yeah, they got a formula down. It works every time for them. But I want to be the guy that doesn't follow a formula. I want people. I want to be. That's my formula. Is that I do.
The formula is there's no formula.
Right. It's not. It's Warren's not always going to be investigating a mystery. Sometimes he's going to be put in the woods and he's got to survive. That's the book. And that's a very different take, because your other police characters, that's not what happens usually. And so, but being in the setting that it's in the Pacific Northwest, I feel like I have the freedom to do that. Like that, you could get in that scenario depending on what happens. So that's kind of where I go, and I'm like, does he survive that encounter or does he not? Because he's a man of very strict rules. He has a moral code that he won't cross a certain line, and sometimes that's coming. Is he going to choose to cross that line, or does he die on that hill, so to speak? And I don't really know. Like I get to like, some part of me is like, maybe he dies on that hill. Maybe that's inspiring to people that he will not cross that line because he knows that's wrong and he can't do. Or maybe he does cross that line and it's, holy cow, what's going to happen to him? Like, is he going to change radically? Is he going to, is he going to go down a dark path? Is this, both are super fascinating. And so when I get to that point, I'm just going to have to make a choice and go from there.
Yeah. I've read a couple of books where, it's a whole series.
Yeah.
Gets to the end of the series. And then the series is so successful that they decide to do prequels.
Yeah.
Or they do side, things that happen along that time frame of the books, or they're like, oh no, we're gonna divert and we're gonna go back to maybe the second book, and this thing happened. We're gonna focus on this thing that happened over here.
Yeah.
And so like you're talking about those two characters that were in prison, and they're that it's almost like a side quest.
He's like, I'm gonna give this to you.
No, I've had the very same idea. I have a fascination with like mobster stories and things like that. And I thought that would be a good start to a prequel story to Motto and Anakin's character, of them in prison and them getting out, and kind of leading to where we meet them in Tribal Honor. I had an idea of doing like a crime epic like that. And so it's funny you mentioned that, because I actually brought that up. I'm a big fan of The Sopranos and things like that. And I was thinking, that'd be a unique idea to tell it from a Native American gang perspective, because you don't really see that very often.
You don't hear about that as much, but I mean, there's a whole cultural thing that's around it.
Yeah, we know the cartel, mafia, and all that, but you don't really know of the Native American gang. So I thought that would be an interesting world to experience and investigate myself, researching. So. Yeah, so that might be on the back burner, but we'll see. I have so many ideas. I have so many things I got to do. It's just a matter of how successful the books are, because I'm funding this. It's all coming out of me, so luckily the first one did well enough, and so I just take it book by book. And my wife always tells me, like, stay in the pocket. You gotta, don't get ahead of yourself. But it's good to have those dreams, but you also got to focus on one mission at a time. Which so right now my mission's Jericho Burning's got to succeed for me to get to the next step. Yeah, and I'm hopeful I am. That's why I put everything I have in every book. So.
That's awesome. So how do we support you on this one? Get the word out and
just reviews, like everything that's been happening. Reviews on Amazon are number one. That's the biggest thing. I think when people leave reviews, it creates chatter, and buzz about the book, and social media posts, things like that. That's the biggest support, I think, is that I can't really think of anything else. My website's www.tgbrownbooks.com. Yeah. If you subscribe to that, you'll get a lot of info on any project that I'm working on first. So we're trying to get more subscribers for that, just to help get the word out. So
does it have like a newsletter or anything like that?
Yeah, newsletters, updates, things like that. So
you do a good job on your stories too. You're like super active on your stories.
Yeah, I try. I think it was there was a bodybuilder, Megan. What's her name? Megan. Yeah.
Megan.
She said something on your guys' interview that she wants to bring people with her, and I
was
very much felt that. I was like, that's how I hope that's what my hope is. I want to bring people with me on the journey. And I think that's what kind of books are in a way, or stories. Like, we're living vicariously through these stories, right? And so I want people to live vicariously through my characters, and it's an interesting way to look at it, but I think that's kind of what I think as I'm writing it. I want people to feel like they're a cop when they're reading, and feel like they've lived that experience. And it'll be interesting. You know, at the end of this book with Warren, he's at a place where he's going to face something emotionally that he hasn't faced for a while, and that's kind of where he's at the end of this story. So it'll be interesting how it's received. Because
writers, I mean, it's different from an actor. I mean, you're watching someone on screen, but people are still like, oh my god, I read your book, and like you spent time with you, and you got in your mind, you kind of saw these characters. So it's almost like you're kind of with someone like, I think I know you.
Yeah.
Have you been recognized yet?
Yeah, you know.
He's like, I have.
No, it's funny. I was talking about this with my wife. I talk about a lot of things there. No, we, you know, it's funny. We were talking about authors, like famous authors and things like of that nature. And we're like, you know, I wouldn't recognize Stephen King if I saw him in a store. You know, it's funny because being an author, I think there's this feeling that you're just a famous individual once you sell, like people just recognize you, and really it's not that, because you're not in front of a camera a whole lot.
I don't know what Dean Koontz looks like.
Right. You know, I don't know what I wouldn't recognize Dean Koontz. I wouldn't recognize, I mean, maybe Jack Carr I'd recognize just because he has a podcast and I see a lot. But that's a hard maybe, because they're not movie stars, you know. And so it's like that, you know, it's funny because everyone sees me at like a party now that I've published, oh, you're famous, you know, your book was a bestseller, you're famous. I'm like, really? My life hasn't changed a whole lot. Like I kind of walk in and no one really knows me unless they've known me before. So no, it's not like this glamorous life. I think
coming. It's coming.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not like I said, like the most famous authors, I wouldn't recognize. Like Stephen King, I thought was short, and then I looked up his IMDb page or whatever, and he's actually a taller guy. So
isn't he like 6 something?
Yeah, so that just goes to tell you, like, I could get super big, and people are like, who's that guy? You know, so but I kind of like that because I like being behind the scenes writing. So
yeah.
But anyways, yeah, it's this funny thing that we talked about. We're like, yeah, I don't think people realize it when you're not as famous as a movie star or a professional athlete, because you're not in front of the camera, you're behind the scenes, you know.
So when you get reservations at a restaurant, you don't say, you know, TJ Brown, author. Yeah, at the end of it.
There we go.
You bring your book and slide it across the table.
There you go, signed copy, sir.
We're gonna make this bill go away.
Yeah. No, it's not like that. You know, it's funny when it became a bestseller. You know, my wife actually woke me up at like 3 a.m. She was, I don't know why she was up on her phone at 3 a.m, but she was up and she was like, "Honey," and I was like, "What?" And she's like, "It's a bestseller," and I was kind of like, "Oh, that's awesome," you know. But I went back to bed because I was tired. And I remember
I went back to bed because I was tired.
And I woke up and I was like, well, did I dream that, you know? Anyways, and we were super excited about it. And then, you know, we're telling everybody because it was like around Christmas time or New Year's, and we were seeing family, and they're like, that's awesome. Congrats, you know? Yeah. And I get home later that night and we look at each other like, nothing's really changed.
So no bells go off.
You know what I mean?
Phones don't start ringing.
It's awesome that you're like, it's an accomplishment. Like, I'm proud of it, you know? But like, you get there and it's like, I still got to do the chores. I'm so.
They want me to come into work today. I don't know why.
It's a job I have to go to.
Yeah. So it's really a funny dynamic. So
awesome. Well, we're glad to have you back.
Yeah.
And
thanks for coming
help
back.
us through our live here with the.
You did great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, it was great having you back, and we're excited for your new book, and I can't wait to see what this new book you're going to come out with after this is going to be. Yeah. I'm glad we have organ writers here that we can kind of connect with and meet and see what kind of ideas they come out with, and it's cool to have an Oregon connection and see stuff about Oregon in it, because I think it makes it when we're reading it from home, it's like this feels like it's something here, and it feels like it's real. Yeah, and so it's really cool to see, and I hope you keep going with your career in writing and go through the highs and lows and come out the other side.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. So be sure to follow him on his Instagram page, Facebook page.
What's your Instagram handle?
TG Brown Books.
Yeah, it pops up. You just do a search, it pops up. And your website, and look for you on Amazon. And
Amazon. Yep, you just Amazon. I think if you clicked on the Tribal Honor book, there's a little thing that says 1 of 2 of the Warren Lawson series, so it's pretty easy to find now on Amazon. So
I know there's another T.G. Brown author out there, so don't get mixed up with him.
There's another
is it like T. Graham or something?
Yeah. So there's an older guy and then there's a younger guy.
Yeah.
So go with the young guy.
Go with the young guy.
Camera
on my list.
Your catchphrase, go with the young guy.
I feel like a politician when I look at the camera, like, go with me. So.
Yeah.
Just look at it like that.
Yeah.
right. Well, thanks. And you got to get to work here pretty soon.
Yeah, fortunately.
You got to do your own Warren Lawson and go do your day job.
My boss doesn't let me just have the day off because I'm a writer. Ridiculous.
You're like, I'm a bestseller. He's like, great.
Yeah.
I know.
Bucket.
In fact, they just joke about it now. They're like, oh, big time out there. Now go take care of that call. Okay.
Awesome. Well, glad to have you in.
Yep. Thank you.